Hi, I'm John Schultz, owner of JDS Home Inspection Services in Denver, Colorado. Happy holidays! One of the best parts of celebrating the holidays is decorating with exterior lights. There are plenty of contractors who specialize in hanging seasonal lights, but if you're like me, you like to hang your own lights. In this case, there are a few things to consider before you just pull out the ladder. Just like with any other home project, it's a good idea to start with a plan. Your first step is to know where your exterior outlets are located. If your outlets aren't GFCI protected, it's a good idea to upgrade them for safety. Do not plan to use any interior outlets for your design. This is not only a fire hazard, but allows cold air into the home. Next, take a look at your main electrical panel. Make sure you know which circuit breaker controls the outdoor outlets. Keep an eye out for any interior outlets connected to that same circuit breaker. Do your best to make sure your awesome lighting display is the only thing running off that breaker. Remember, there's only a certain amount of electricity you can safely use. Look over the design of your home and plan your display. Are you going to run lights along the gutters, around the front door, across the roof, in the trees? Are you planning a display for the yard that will need power? Be creative, but be safe. Never hang the lights on the main service mast. All of the electricity for the home enters through this mast. Don't even go near it while hanging lights. Once you have a design in mind, take measurements to determine how many lights you'll need. Having a helper for this is key. Be careful on your ladder. Make sure it's set up on stable ground. Over 200 people a year die setting up holiday decorations, and mostly because improperly set up ladders. I know in some situations it's unavoidable, but if at all possible, do your best to stay off the roof. Asphalt shingles get brittle when it gets cold and they damage easily. Most other building materials shouldn't be walked on at all. Once you have all your measurements, you can figure out how many strings of lights you can plug in safely. This depends on a few factors, such as the type of bulb, the length of the string that you're using, and the type of light. There are many different types of lights to choose from, but what you most commonly run into are going to be incandescent or LED. They may look the same, but incandescent lights are cheaper and they don't last as long. They also use 80% more energy than LED lights, which means you can't string as many lights together. LED lights may be more expensive at the store, but will save you money in the long run. So let's do the math. Most homes will have a 15 amp circuit breaker on their exterior outlets. The amperage of the breaker will be labeled on the handle in the breaker box. 15 amp breakers can safely handle 1,440 watts. Each string of lights will have the wattage they need on the box. For example, a single string of 50 LED lights is about 10 feet long and uses 4.8 watts. So if the breaker can handle 1,440 watts, simply divide that by 4.8 watts to get 300 strings of lights, meaning you can safely connect 300 strings of this particular LED string on this circuit. This is about 3,000 feet of lighted length. That's more than enough for most home displays. But now let's take a look at incandescent lights, which use 125 watts per 30-foot string. In this case, you can only connect 11.5 strings on that same circuit, which is only 340 feet of lights. Take note of the wattage on each box and add them up until you have all your measurements covered. If your wattage is too high, you risk overload and fire, so always stay below a total of 1,440 watts. Some strings may use more wattage than others, so it's important to factor those into your calculations. I know it may seem like an extra step to do the math, but it's important to prevent electrical fires. And look on the bright side. You only need to do it once. Then you can decorate with lights for any holiday. Now you know how many lights you can safely plug in and how many you're going to need to purchase. When purchasing, pay attention to the lighted length rather than the total length, or you'll end up with gaps in your display. Most importantly, make sure your lights are all rated for outdoor use. Sunlight, moisture, and cold temperatures can damage interior rated LEDs. Pay attention to string color as well as bulb color. Usually these strings come in white and green. You'll find yourself going back to the store if you need 5 strings and 2 of them are the wrong color. Speaking of color, if you're buying white lights, make sure they're all the same shade of white. When side by side, there's a big difference between cool white, which looks blue, and bright white, which looks yellow. If you're skipping the store and using older strings you have in a box somewhere, but you aren't sure if they're LED or incandescent, it's best to err on the side of caution and assume they're incandescent strings. Just be sure to factor these into your calculations. They should still have a tag showing their wattage needs. When you're ready to hang the lights, pick a warm, calm day. Never do this in the snow and ice. Also, things will go much faster and safer if you have a helper. Before you climb up the ladder, test all of your lights. Untie the knots and replace any bulbs that have gone out. Discard any strings with frayed or worn cords, as these can pose a shock hazard. As for where to begin, some suggest starting at the top and working your way down, which is fine. However, I suggest starting at the outlets and working outward. That way you can fix any issues as they come up. Also, give yourself plenty of time to get this job done. Given the weather and the complexity of the design, this job can take several hours. Don't start at sunset thinking you'll be able to see the lights better. Otherwise, you'll just be up the ladder in the dark. Never hang your lights with staples or nails, as you risk damaging the wire and turning the whole gutter into a shock hazard, or damaging the siding of the home. Don't do permanent damage to anything while setting up a temporary display. Plastic clips that mount to the gutters are the safest option for hanging lights. When connecting strings of lights, be sure to tape the connection. This keeps moisture out and prevents them from disconnecting in the wind. If you run extension cords through the yard, just as with the string lights, make sure they're rated for exterior use. Be sure to secure them to avoid tripping hazards. Remember, there's a chance they could be covered with snow. Never run extension cords over walkways or driveways. Setting your display to a timer will keep you from wasting electricity during the day. This is also great for security if you travel during the holidays, as it makes it look like someone is home. Be festive, but be safe. Remember, the point of this is to light up the house, not light up the house. Thanks for listening. Be sure to check out our other videos for helpful tips on other home-related subjects.